Now, Irvin, right on cue, you are known around the college and around campus for your iconic companion who has just woken up from a nap and now she's going back down. Tell us a bit about Cora and some of your history with dog training.
Well, in order to tell you a bit about Cora, I would have to tell you something about her predecessors. Because I came to FIM, came to Restorative Justice Initiative through a, what would you call it? An action of executive authority by the governor of this state when I was granted clemency, March 25th, 2021. Before that, I had been incarcerated at Graterford for 26 years, at Rockview for 26 years, right down the road. They started a program 7 years prior that involved dogs, that involved training us to be canine handlers and dog trainers for the purpose of training service animals. And if a dog didn't meet the criteria of becoming a service animal, they would become an ideal pet. And I begged to be placed into that program because I hadn't had the opportunity to touch a dog. And I grew up with dogs in over 50 years, almost 50 years at that time. And I begged. They said, oh, Irvin, or they were calling me Mr. Irvin this time. I had went past the Irvin stage, the Irv stage. So I was Mr. Irv. Mr. Irv, don't even worry about it. You know you're going to be one of our first candidates. So I was allowed into the program. And, it was magnificent. It was par excellence, and I learned so much. This was right before COVID hit. Now, once COVID hit, right before COVID hit, I was given a dog who they said was untrainable because he was old, he was huge, he was a St. Bernard full blood. He was, at that time, 150 pounds. And they say he didn't even have name recognition. But I was good. Believe me, when I say I was good, I don't pat myself on the back, but I do. So they brought Fred in. His name was Fred. They said, well, Mr. Irv, here he is. Let's see what you can do with him. I said, okay, thank you. Look, I appreciate that. And they left. I brought Fred to my cell. First thing Fred did was ran and jumped on the bed. No. Jumped on the cot because we have no beds in prison. We have cots. So he jumped on the cot, and I said, well, that's okay. All my dogs can get on the cot, and we do this together. I went to sit down and found that I had no place to sit. Now, my cot was my bench, my stool, my workplace. I was an artist as well. I was a budding musician, and I read and I studied all on my cot. So I told Fred, look, get off, get down. He looked at me. He just turned and looked. I said, down. And he came off the bed and laid on the ground. I took my mattress off of the cot and put it on the floor right next to him. And that's where he and I remained for the next 3 days and nights. I would touch him. I would rub him. I would call his name. I would give him treats. I would tell him to get up. I would tell him to sit down. I would tell him to lay. I would tell him to come here over and over and over again. Consistency, patience. Then I would rub him. I would pet him. I would look into his eyes as he looked in mine, let him know I cared about him. 3 days later, the team came back in. Where's Mr. Irv? Oh, where's Fred? I came to the door, and they said, Mr. Irv, the people out here, they want you. So I walked out. They were sitting adjacent to me. I walked straight ahead, the middle of the common area. And I turned around and looked at them and said, what's wrong? Where's Fred? I turned around and looked at my cell. The door it wasn't shut closed, it was just closed. I said, Fred. The door swung open. A huge head came to the door and looked out. They looked at it. I said, come. Fred walked over to me about 20, 25 feet. Got next to me. I turned him around. We proceeded up the stairs, around the tier, all the way around the other steps coming down. We came down the steps, walked over to where the folk were sitting. I stopped, looked at Fred and said, sit. Fred sat down. They were sitting there with their mouths open. They had never seen anything. Fred, obeying commands? Fred was big. He was big and glorious and friendly and loving. So COVID struck. So for the next almost 2 years, there was not a bit of movement on the inside of the prison, nowhere except for the guards themselves. This had never occurred in the 50-odd years I had been incarcerated. Never occurred more than a day or two. But there was no movement. But Fred and I went everywhere. And what I mean by that? Once the warden saw the impact that Fred had on everyone, he said, Mr. Herb, can you take Fred over to the hole so the guys over there can see Fred? Maybe by saying Fred, they'll stop acting up. Can you take Fred over to the psychological ward so the guys over there, they would like to see Fred? Maybe we can let one or two of them come out and pet Fred. Can you take him over to the hospital? Can you take him over to the infirmary? Can you take him to the hospice where the men are dying? That's what we did. We went everywhere. The inner area looked like a wasteland, no movement whatsoever. But you would see two figures moving. That was Fred and I, walking from one block to another, to the staff areas, over to the hole, to the infirmary. And we did this until I received a notice one night.
Hey, everyone, if you would like to learn more about how you could support either the Restorative Justice Initiative, the Prison Education Program, or any other aspect of the College of Education, please feel free to reach out to me, Steve Wilson, Director of Development for the college. I'm at stw2@psu.edu. We'd love to chat with you.
And we did this until I received a notice one night that the governor had signed my writ of commutation. I was standing there surrounded by all of the administration at the time, wardens, deputy wardens, director of treatments, all the administration who knew me from the time I had put in. And we had respect, mutual respect. And they presented the proclamation to me, and I just looked at it. At first, I couldn't believe it, because it had only been 3 weeks since the Pardons Board had said, we're going to grant this, but we'll send it to the governor, see what he says. So I expect to wait another year. It was 3 weeks. So when they presented this to me, Fred was laying at my feet, and I just looked down, and I said, oh, man. They expected me to be jubilant, jumping around, screaming, hollering, but all I could think about was, I am going to have to leave Fred. I was going to leave him, no doubt. But, boy, my heart was breaking. The warden at that time, she was comparatively new. She looked at me and said, Mr. Earp, what's wrong? I just looked down and said, Fred. She says, oh, I should not have done this way. I didn't know what she was talking about. She went back to the bench that she was standing at the table where she had retrieved the initial proclamation. She brought another piece of paper back, holding it up with its backside facing me so I couldn't see what it was. I said, what's this, a copy? She said, read it. I took it. I turned around and looked. I said, yeah, it's a copy. Because I could see the old English black lettering. I could see the seal. I said, it's another copy. She said, Mr. Irv, you're one of the most educated individuals in this room. Read that, please. The first thing my eyes fell on was, pardon me, this happens every time. But the first thing my eyes fell on was the words, in the case of Fred Moore, the dog. I don't know what happened next. I was on the floor. I had my knees had given out. I was just on the floor hugging Fred because I knew Fred was going home with me. I didn't know when, but I knew Fred was going home with me. The warden says, and the governor said to make sure to tell you that you leave tomorrow morning, you and Fred. Oh. So, Fred was Cora's predecessor. Fred came home with me, and Fred and I went everywhere there was to go in this marvelous world of ours. At that time, I had no car, so we walked. And I was 75 years old, but I felt like I was 25 years old. And we went everywhere. And the impact that Fred had on any and everyone that saw him was automatic. Cars would stop. Buses would roll up and stop, and doors would open. Hey, what is that? What do you got there? Can you bring him over here? We were denied entrance into 2 venues out of all the places we went, and that was only because the person said, look, can you hold it for a minute? Hey, get the manager, bring him in. I got something, I want him to see this. He said, come on in. Fred and I went everywhere. And then, unfortunately, Fred developed a terminal illness, bone cancer, after about 2.5 years, and he passed. My heart was broken again, of course, and I went to pause to see if they could find another St. Bernard, because I wanted a St. Bernard. I wanted something big. I love big dogs. I was taken there by a couple, Tom Songer and his wife Sarah, who had some connections at Pause. They wanted to hear my story as well. So I finished telling them, talking to them, and they says, well, Mr. Moore, we don't usually deal with big dogs like that, but thank you for your story, and we'll keep you in mind. 6 days later, I got a call, a text that said, can you come to Pause and pick your dog up? I said, wait a minute, you guys don't that? I went there, and it was Cora. They said, now, she's been emotionally and psychologically and physically abused. She's terrified of human beings, and she was. They said, keep her on a leash at all times. Don't walk without the leash because she's a escape artist. She will run in a heartbeat. But this is Cora, who I bring to work. I've been allowed to do that. Thank you so much, Ephraim. Thank you so much, Liana, and the crew here who take care of Cora as if she was there, because she is. And we walk around the university. We go any and everywhere that we went with Fred. And she's a part of me. She's a part of this environment just like I am.
And it all started with the work.
It all started with the Canine Trainers Program at Rockview.
Actually met Irvin when he was in one of the classes inside.
Indeed.
And I remembered because of Fred. So I would spend my time playing with Fred when we were in class. So while they were doing art,
really?
Yeah, they were doing art, and I was playing with Fred. And so it was great to welcome Fred, and then Cora. I think Cora took like 6 months before she would like get from underneath the table, and now she's our buddy.
She sits on her feet until she's satisfied with how many pets we've given her.
Talk about the
she
growth.
decides.
Yeah.